Hello and welcome back. So today we'll be talking about exception handling, and in particular we'll be defining our own exception. We'll see how in some cases the built-in exceptions are not good enough for our application, and hence we need to define our own exception that meet the requirements. So if you remember last time we talked about the payment application where we discussed abstract classes, interfaces. So we created our base payment, um, and then which was declared as an abstract class because of the abstract method authenticate. And then we created child classes. One of these child classes is credit card. What we did last time, we simply um, implemented the abstract method from the base payment, and we also implemented the collect payment method from the interface. So today, in order to work with exception handling, let's update the code for the credit card. So as you all know, every credit card has balance. So maybe we need something like double balance. And it has also some expiry date. So end expiry year. And for that, we will add a constructor. I will also add another parameterized constructor, so to be able to work with the credit card class. So imagine somewhere when we are authenticating, we last time we simply printed a statement verifying CVV and expiry date. So this is only for demo, but today we will try to make it more realistic. So we will be actually checking the expiry date. So what I would do is I will check the expiry year for the credit card, and then I will compare it maybe to the current year. And based on that, I will say whether the card is expired or not. The problem here is, let's say, if for some kind of logic, if somehow, I don't know, we will find a way to write, or you know what, if expiry year, we want to compare it to the current year. So the way we do it is maybe we need here to we need to use a year from the utility library. So we would import the year as we do with any other import. So we could import here java.time.year, and maybe here inside my authentication method I would check this year against the expiry year. So if the expiry year is less than year dot we'll use year dot now. So this is the current year, and then we will take the value for this year. So this will return an integer for that value. So basically what I'm saying, if the expiry year is in the past, it's less than the current year, I will, as you know from previous classes, we throw an exception. So the question is here, what kind of exception I will throw? So if I simply say invalid or expired card, it would throw an exception, but the problem here, the exception is so general. I need to be more specific. And this is where user-defined exceptions play a role. So we will be replacing this validation, this throwing for the exception, general exception. We will replace it with a more meaningful exception. So maybe something like invalid or expired card exception. So how do we do that? Let me comment this first. Um, and we'll comment this. We'll get it back to it later. So how do we start? We start by creating a new class. Let's say expired card exception. So this would be my class. And to benefit from the exception class, the built-in exception class, we will make this a child class. So extends exception. And all we need here is basically a constructor that would take um, the string message that we want to display to the user and will pass it to the parent. That's all I need at the moment. We could add other attributes here, maybe attributes that we need. Maybe you would like to pass, for example, the exception year. And then you can customize the error message that you would like to display. I will keep it simple this time. So this is my exception class. As you can see, it's very simple. I gave it a meaningful name. So expired card exception. It will extend the built-in exception class. So it will take all the properties and the behavior of the exception class, and all I need is a parameterized constructor that will pass the error message to the parent, and that's it. Now we can go back to our credit card class, and we'll go back to this code. So now instead of throwing a new exception class, I would now throw a more meaningful exception. So I will take the card expired exception or expired card exception, and I will say expired card, and maybe I would add to that the expiry year, so that the user would know, sorry, the user would know when the card was expired. Now we have another challenge, which is we are throwing an exception. But as you know, part of exception is handling the exception. So at this stage, I'm throwing, but nowhere I'm handling the exception. In simple terms, I have no try-catch statement here. Ideally, I don't need a try-catch here. I would like to postpone it to the maybe driver class. So how do I work around this one? As you can see, unreported exception. It must be caught or declared to be thrown. So we're not catching the exception here, which means I'm only left with one solution, which is declaring the exception. So how do we declare an exception? How do we announce to others that this method throws an exception? Actually, I just gave you the solution. When we want to declare, all we need is to add here throws, okay, as a keyword, and we identify the exception that we are throwing. So this method throws the card expired exception. Of course, this will now show me an error because it's not in the base class. So in order to do that, we have, of course, to fix the signature for the method in the base payment. So we'll take it here and we'll go, because this is where we got the method from. So we will simply add throws here, and this should solve our problem. All right. So what we did now, simply we verified the expiry year, and if the card is expired, we will throw an exception, which means we will stop the client from proceeding. Remember here in the collect payment, we are authenticating first, and then we are uh, um, collecting the payment. So first we authenticate and then we collect the payment, or at least we are simulating this at this stage. Again here, as you can see, so unreported exception. So I'm not planning to handle exception, so I'm only left with declaring the exception. Again, so because I'm changing here, I have also to change it in the interface. So I go back to my interface and then I declare my exception here. So it all work coherently. So we change the signature here in the parent class. We change the signature for collect payment um, in the interface, and now we will be able to complete this code. All right. So now my authenticate method can throw an exception if the expire year is less than the current year. So the final step here is to handle the exception. And when we declare the exception here, it means we're planning to handle it somewhere else. For us, we are planning to handle exceptions here. So this is no longer valid. What we will do now is first we will add a try, and then we will add a catch block. So what are we catching? I'm catching the exception I just defined. So that's the first one. Okay. And if this exception is caught, all I need is to display the message with that exception. So I'll take you back to the expired exception. Remember here, we have the constructor with one parameter, which is a string message, and this message will be passed to the parent, which is the exception class, and that's how we get the message. So in simple terms, whatever I write here when I throw the exception, so this message, this is what I am planning to display to the user. So when I call get message, I will get exactly this message. Okay, so let's go back here. And then, as a good practice, just in case you forget, maybe you will have other types of exceptions. Let's add the general exception, and this will do exactly the same, but it will display a general error. So that's the get message. Okay, now this is here complaining because we have nowhere in the try. We didn't write the code yet, but nothing in the try is throwing this kind of exception. So first of all, let's create an instance of credit card. Remember, we added a constructor for our class where we need to add the balance and the expire year. So credit card CD equal new credit card where we have the balance. Let's say I have 1,500 and the expire year is 2024, 2025, for example. Okay, so now this is my credit card. Then where everything is working is when we collect the payment. So we collect the payment. This will call authenticate, and authenticate will be throwing this exception. So let's see if this will work. So now collect the payment. So cd dot collect payment. Let's say I want to collect 500 today. As you can see, I have no more errors. Now the question is, what do you think will happen now? I have a credit card with balance 1,500. I'm collecting 500. However, the expiry year is 2025. So let's see. Let's run the code. If we run now, oh, sorry, I'm running in the wrong file. Okay, so run file. And as you can see, it will throw the exception and it will show me expired card 2025. Maybe we can display a more meaningful message. So maybe something like expired card plus please use another card, so that we inform the user that transaction could not proceed. Remember, if we pass authentication, then we will display the charged amount, which did not happen. Yeah, look at the output. I was verifying and then I saw only this. So we never saw this statement, which means my card did not pass the my card did not pass the authentication and the exception was immediately thrown. Okay, let's run again and see a more meaningful message. Run the file. So as you can see again, expired card 2025, please use another card. All right, what if we change to 2028, for example? What will happen now if we run again? Voila, charge amount, and then we display everything as we did last time. And that's it. So as you can see, just to summarize, we created our own exception class by simply extending from the parent class, which is exception, the built-in one, and all we need is this parameterized construct. And you could always add other parameters, as I said, if you want to customize the print statement. And then here in the credit card, we decided when to throw the exception. Keep in mind one important fact. If you are throwing a user-defined exception, you need a condition. So otherwise, how would the function know that this is an exception? So that's why we added here the if statement. We checked the expiry year, and based on our check, either we throw the exception or not. So keep that in mind. If you are throwing an exception, then you have to have an if statement. That's the first thing we learned today. The second thing, if we are not planning to handle exception on spot, yeah, so we have to declare the exception. Hence, we had to write throws in the signature for the method. So we, which means I am declaring the exception here and postponing handling to somewhere else. The same we did with collect payment because it's calling authenticate, which might throw an exception. So we're not planning to handle exception here. Then we have to declare it, throws. And the last thing that we have is in the main class here, we must handle exceptions. There is no other place remaining. So if you don't handle exceptions here, then your application will crash if the exception is thrown. That's why here we did not declare the exception because we're actually handling the exception at this stage. So I hope the idea is now clear to you. I have another challenge, and this time the challenge is for the, again, the, oops, let me, okay. So the challenge is for the credit card class. Remember, here we added balance and expire year, and we only dealt with expire year. So what about balance? Now we're collecting payment, and the user is giving a certain amount to collect. Do you think we can simply process this without any check? Can we collect any amount even if we don't have enough balance? So this is what I want you to think about. That being said, we will be handling this balance exception. For that, you will be creating something like insufficient balance exception, the same way we did for expired card exception. And then we will, maybe you can practice adding missing amount to the exception class if you would like. It's not necessary. And then in the credit card class, where do you think we need to throw the exception? Where are we dealing with amount? Is it here or here? Hmm. Obviously, it's in the collect payment where we have information about the amount. So here we need to we need to check for this exception. So the same way we did for authenticate, you have to find a way to do it for collect payment. All right. And then you can check. Maybe this is just a recommendation for the customized error message that you can display. So here you can try to simulate. If I put, for example, 2,500, do you think this should go through if my balance is only 1,500? Think about it. And I will be seeing you in another video. That's it for now, and have a good one.